people are not willing to believe that statement. People are willing to believe that somehow their business is exempt. And maybe there are businesses that are exempt. I think it would be hard to outsource your subway if you were the owner of two subways. You could probably outsource your accounting and your bookkeeping. Yeah. But for businesses like us, for what we do in the syndication business, I find that there's a shockingly low amount of outsourcing, shockingly low. And when I say, outsourcing, I use virtual assistants, but I don't mean virtual assistants, okay? So VAs are the beginning of that process. What I mean is a company that is fully integrated, meaning if you have 10 employees in the US, you have 20 in the Philippines or 20 in Mexico, whichever one you prefer. I think those are probably the two kind of, options. If you, can live with the time difference with the Philippines, then that works better for you. So I created a vision a long time ago where I said, I truly want to have enough people so that I never say to myself, we never get the time to do X. We never get the time to do Y. I wanted the ability to do X and Y and then 2X and then 10X. And so I created a program. This was a vision, it was about 2014. And I said, I want something that 10Xs my business, right? It 10Xs my business. And so I wrote it down on a piece of paper. I refined it. I started, doing research on it. And today I've reached that point where I believe that my business is truly being 10x'd by this Filipino team that I have. So I'll give you some details of that team so you can really understand what I've done. Number one, I don't work with any company in the Philippines. I hire everybody directly. So they're all direct employees of mine. None of them works at night, our time. They all work from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific. They have no choice. So they work from their homes. So it's, but it's not a flex position. They have to be in front of their computer from 8 to 5. We have an extensive software product that is tracking every single mouse click and every single keyboard entity. And we are ranking them on a daily basis. And each week we provide them with rankings on their productivity. And if their ranking falls too low, they're fine.
Screenshot monitor or
it's a software that is built into a tool called Upwork. So we use Upwork for all the hiring, but Upwork, one of the things that most people don't know is Upwork provides an extraordinarily powerful tool that monitors what all of the people are doing. How many times did they press a keystroke? How many times did they move the mouse? And then it provides screenshots. Every time there's screen changes, it provides screenshots. So we have a full-time employee. Her name's Kay. And what she does is she actually goes through these screenshots and she goes through these rankings and publishes them on our Slack. Slack is like Microsoft Teams. It's basically a channel-based software. Yep. So we have reports. We have over 25 productivity reports for our virtual assistants that are published every week, 25 different reports. Mm-hmm. And some are taken from the Upwork software. Some are taken from screenshots. Some are taken from other measurements. And each employee in the Philippines is actually far more accountable than our US employees. Wow. I have not been able to get my US employees to have the level of accountability that my Philippines team has. One reason for that is that I would have to hire another $100,000 employee just to make them accountable. Whereas I can hire somebody like Kay for $13, $14 an hour in the Philippines, and everyone else can be $7 an hour. So now we have full-time directors and managers whose job it is to make those people accountable. So we have an extraordinarily high level of accountability. When you look at, companies like IBM that have 30,000 employees in Bangalore, they always say this: those employees are more accountable. It's all about the creation of systems, processes, checkpoints, checklists, and then weekly reports. We call this not public shaming, but public accountability. So imagine every Monday you're a virtual assistant in the Philippines, you come into work and there's a Slack channel and it's lit up and you click on it and you see, all of us on this very nice bar graph where the highest bar is awesome and the lowest bar is not so good, right? Would you want to be the lowest bar every single week? No. Don't you know that if you're on the lowest bar for 3 or 4 consecutive weeks, you're not going to be employed with us anymore. So what are you going to do? You're going to work harder. You're going to push yourself up to the middle and maybe even some days push yourself up to the top. Imagine trying to do that with US employees. You would be called Big Brother. You would be called, what is that? All the usual stuff that we throw at people when we feel like they're too on top of us, micromanagement, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Please understand that other cultures do not feel this way.
Yeah.
Nobody in the Philippines has ever accused us of micromanagement because all of their managers manage them to metrics.
Yeah.
And this isn't micromanagement, it's management by metrics. So these reports, these systems are why my Philippines team is more accountable than my US team, and as a result, is more productive than my US team. And I'm always looking for ways to grow. And by the way, I'm not replacing any employee in the US, right? So one of the key concepts well, I wouldn't say the concept, the key myth, the key myth for outsourcing is that outsourcing saves money. Okay. Now, the truth is, it's true to a certain level. But here's a better sentence. Here's something that's much better. Saving money is a horrible use of outsourcing.
Yeah.
Making your company grow 10 times faster is a much better way of using outsourcing.
Okay.
So when you have Microsoft with its 30,000 employees in Bangalore, Microsoft is not trying to save money. Yeah. Microsoft is trying to grow faster, do things faster. You know, the software cycles for Microsoft for Windows have gone from 4 years when they would release a new version to 1 year. They now have an annual release. Why do you think they're able to do that? Because they're able to have 4 times as many programmers, right? To get that done. So none of the large companies are looking to save money by outsourcing. They're looking to stay ahead of their competitors. They're looking to be unique. They're looking to create more profit. And that's my belief. I have never, ever tried to save a single dollar in the Philippines, right? So if I had budget for one operation staff in the United States, that was, let's say, $72,000 an hour, Vinney, at $72,000 a year, I hire $72,000 worth of employees in the Philippines.
Oh dear. Wow.
Right? And so that usually is one manager. So that manager might be about $28,000, followed by 4 employees. So now we've added it up to 72, and sometimes it's more than 72. Many times I'm spending $90,000 in the Philippines for a team instead of $72,000 in the US for an employee. What am I getting out of that? Productivity, scale, growth, efficiency, right? I'm able to do things that most people can't dream of. I have 850 investors. And when an email comes in from an investor, we answer it within 59 minutes or less, right? Boom, high response speeds. And those investors are really happy about that, right? We have people in the Philippines mining websites, Bureau of Labor Statistics, mining Zillow, mining all of these, putting dashboards together for us. So when we make decisions, instead of hours, we can make decisions in minutes, right? I tell people, I'm really, really dumb. I don't want to see a table. Never show me a table. Only show me a chart, a graph, or a pie. That's what I understand, right? And everything to get from huge numbers of huge tables of numbers that I can't understand to beautiful pie graphs, it's all done in the Philippines. That translation of data to decision making is all done in the Philippines, right? And that's why I always have huge numbers of people. I have 2 full-time executive assistants, Vinney, and they are stressed. These girls are working 55 hours a week, and people are like, how could you possibly have enough work? The answer is experience. Yeah. If you were to hire 2 awesome executive assistants at your home, right? They come to your home. Yeah. If you're still just there for 6 months with them, at the end of 6 months, they would be stressed. You would have lots of work for them, right? It's a matter of process. Yeah. Of course, there's always enough work. When there's not enough work, guess what I do? I open a new business. I open a new division. I open a new venture. I go back and poll my investors. I reconnect. There's always enough. So the truth is, the biggest bottleneck in my company is me. That's the biggest piece of it. So I find people, I go to conferences and people know about me using virtual assistants. So I talk with them and they're like, they're a lot of work. They're a huge amount of work. I feel like I've added massive amounts of work by hiring these people. And I tell them that the biggest concept is that when you're looking to budget for these virtual assistants, make sure that you budget their managers first. Yeah. Right? Because the key is that these virtual assistants are meant to free you up and free up everyone else in the US. Free you up, free up your US staff, because your US staff is really expensive. Very, very expensive, right? Compared to, the Philippines. So if you're in a situation where people in the United States are spending time to manage people in the Philippines, well, this is the reverse of what you want. This is the opposite. Instead of you becoming, having more time, you now have less time. So from the very beginning, make an investment, right? So I tell people, right, the Philippines, like when you hire a virtual assistant, you're making an investment into your company. It's like any other investment, right? So we purchase something, we purchase a software, and we know that for 6 months, 12 months, that software is just going to increase our workload, right? We're just going to go and put all this stuff in the software. There's all these meetings, and then 1 year or 6 months later, the software is now working, and finally we can breathe and sit back. The Philippines is like that. When you hire a virtual assistant, you're making an investment into your company. It's like any other investment, right? So we purchase something, we purchase a software, and we know that for 6 months, 12 months, that software is just going to increase our workload, right? We're just going to go and put all this stuff in the software. There's all these meetings, and then 1 year or 6 months later, the software is now working, and finally we can breathe and sit back. The Philippines is like that, right? The biggest cost expense is having managers in the Philippines, right? If you don't do that, then you're their manager. Basically, you become their supervisor, so your workload permanently increases, right? And the second piece of it is the systems and processes. Yes. So if you do not have a person in the United States in your organization, maybe you, maybe somebody that works with you, that's obsessed about systems and processes, hire one in the Philippines to do that.
Oh.
Right? Hire somebody over there that is obsessed about systems and processes and charts and benchmarks and weekly reports. Yeah. Hire somebody there, because that's how this works. Everything in life is an investment. And if you don't want to change the way you work, hire somebody that will change the way they work so you don't have to change. Now, ideally, the best thing you could do is actually be more organized, be more structured, spend more time. But I'm not suggesting that that's where you start. Eventually, what will happen is you'll get better at that. But you don't have to be more organized. You just have to be willing to commit to having managers in the Philippines. And that's the difference between my virtual assistants being incredibly efficient and anyone else's. The other piece of this is understand this. Technology is still cheaper than virtual assistants. Okay, so I'll give you an example, but there's hundreds of examples. So I currently spend over $100,000 a year on cloud software, of which more than 50,000 is spent just on the Philippines team software. Okay, so I'll give you an example. So we have a predictive dialer software called Phone Burner, right? And Phone Burner is a high velocity dialing software, which basically when you're talking with somebody, it's still dialing the next person. And as soon as you hang up, it basically has already connected you to the next person. By doing that, there's no time in between, right? You're just going from phone call to phone call to phone call. And it's so smart that if it goes to voicemail, it'll leave a voicemail that you pre-recorded already. And you'll never have that call. It's doing that call on its own. It's when it finds a live person that it immediately, within an eighth of a second, switches to you. Now, you might say, why do you need this if you have an army in the Philippines at $6 an hour? The answer is because technology is still cheaper than those people. So never say, oh, no, I can replace technology with cheap people in the Philippines. The short answer is, it's the combination that's the best. So we pay for a number of Phone Burner licenses, and we do what is known as power dialing. Power dialing is a process of sitting down on Monday and saying, what do we want to say to our top investors this week, right? We want to go out to them and talk with them. Well, we want to let them know about X, Y, and Z webinar that we're doing. Or we want to thank them because a project just ended and we want to personally call them and talk with them. So now we go into our software, we extract a list from our main software. We don't want to call everybody in the software. There's 58,000 people there. We extract a list, and sometimes a list is 60 people, sometimes it's 600 people. And then we've put that list into the software. And before we turn the software on, we have these buttons that we add in so that the person that's on the phone, they're not typing anything. They're just clicking on buttons. So this way they have very high velocity and very high outcomes. And this also means that we know exactly how many calls they took, because for every call, they had to press a bunch of buttons. Make sense? One button could say something like, not currently looking to invest. Another button was, not happy with us. Another button could be, delighted, look ready to invest. All of those buttons at the end of the session will get exported that will lead to other action items. For example, all the delighted, ready to invest would be handed over to the US based manager to make a phone call the very next day. These kinds of systems and processes are something that creates astonishing speed and efficiency within the company.